Hello Internet, welcome to another episode of Tweak Plays. I am Tweak, and today I will be reviewing Bastion. Bastion is a third-person action platformer available on Steam that received rave reviews from just about every corner of the internet. So I decided to buy it a while ago, and then ended up with a phenomenal game backlog, so I never played it until just recently. The game takes place in an anti-gravity city, or what's left of it, after an event known only as the Calamity transpires and leaves not only the city, but most of its inhabitants in ruin. Naturally, because the levels float, the first thing I did was dive off the edge to see if I could. And you can, and probably will, a lot. There should be an achievement for completing the game without diving off the edge and then magically circling back around to land face first next to the ledge off of which you just dove. Magic. Game physics are magic. The gameplay is point and smash, and considering that the character that you play looks like what Hulk would resemble if he lived in California and frequented the surfing scene, that's no surprise. If you add in the fact that the game was built to make inane objects destructible, I spent a good majority of my time just hulking about with my giant hammer, smashing everything to bits. The game has a self-awareness in that as I was hulking around, the narrator said kid just rages for a while, which is exactly what I was doing. Speaking of the narrator, yes, everything you do and everywhere you go is narrated by some omniscient entity who knows what you're doing and also progresses the story. You actually meet this narrator character later on in the Bastion, but at first it was very much like having an eloquent stalker. However, that being said, it was a clever way to progress the story without having unskippable cutscenes or mounds and piles of codex. Given that you resemble a surfer-esque Hulk meets frat boy, and that there are play enhancements that are liquor, and that the entire plot is narrated as though it's a story being told to a wide-eyed child just before bed, I can't help but wonder if Bastion isn't embellished a little. Perhaps the story is actually about Barney, a drunken frat boy who spends a copious amount of time landing on his face in a drunken stupor, but that wouldn't really lend much for gameplay and would probably be a crappy game, but I digress. Artistically, it's very stylized, which makes the game appealing and adds to longevity. The environments and enemies are unique, and the level design is very creative, in that as the narrator tells the story, the level literally appears out of the void around you. Magical, random, floaty city bits rise up to meet your feet as you progress, which is great until you start moving in a certain direction and then realize that nothing is going to appear, and then you fall off the level. Again, the music is also quite unique, and it adds to the pacing of the game. Often with these games, they slow down, or even grind to a halt because the play is repetitive, and there really is only so much point and smash people can take before they realize that Hulk has very little depth beyond his big giant muscles and his inhuman strength, and suddenly is no longer interesting. The addition of new weapons as well as character and weapon upgrades assist the pacing, so you forget that Hulk doesn't have much depth to him in lieu of finding the next shiny thing. Continuing with the Hulk analogy, one of my complaints with the game was the pace at which Hulk main character moved. He really did trudge along as though the muscles that he grew in order to swing that giant hammer of his were impeding his ability to move at anything faster than girl wearing tightly bound kimono pace. In situations wherein getting out of the way was imperative, there is a dodge function. However, often using dodge would lead to commando rolling right off the edge of the level. Again, because it floats. I was frustrated by a certain game mechanic as well, which is the block mechanic. Naturally, if you're facing an enemy, your cursor is hovering over that enemy, you would intuitively think that that is the enemy that you will be blocking. Not so in Bastion, because you are instead blocking whatever enemy is nearest you. That's great and all until you realize that suddenly you're blocking a plant and leaving your ever so precious backside exposed to something extraordinarily pointy and full of malicious intent. This became especially frustrating during the Proving Grounds levels, wherein you compete in order to reach a certain score and earn prizes, because I would be on a roll, I'd hit block, and then I'd flip around and get nailed in the head and then lose. Due to those frustrations, I will be giving Bastion a 4 out of 5. It's beautiful. It's well executed. The art and the pacing are phenomenal, even though you are playing another silent protagonist, smashing everyone's valuables to bits and looting the money within. But the PC mechanics are clunky easy. If that block mechanic worked flawlessly, then this game would have given a 5 out of 5, but that killed me way too often. For an action platformer, it really does have everything that an action platformer needs to differentiate itself from other action platformers, and I wanted to give it a 5 out of 5, except for that block mechanic that killed me way too often. And honestly, the game was very fun, but after completing it for 100%, I don't think that I'll be playing this game again anytime soon. This has been another episode of Tweak Playz. I hope you enjoyed it. Like it, favorite it, share it with your friends, and come back for more episodes.